Alright, so this is our next question from Cat 23, and it is pretty much similar to the last one that we have solved. The approach is also pretty much the same. So you can pause this one and give it a try, and you can resume the video for the solution. So we'll first look at the conventional way of solving this. Alright, let us suppose that the cost price of the product A was A rupees and the cost price of product B was B rupees. Now, there is profit of 20% made on product A, right? So selling price of product A will be, I'll write the selling price here. Selling price of product A will be 1.2A, and there is a loss of 10% on product B. So the selling price will be 0.9B. Okay, logically, when a number increases by 20%, in this case, the selling price for A is 20% higher than the cost. So selling price is 1.2 times the cost, right? And same way, the selling price of B is 10% lower than the cost. So the selling price of B is basically 0.9 times the cost. The question tells us these two values are equal. 1.2A must be equal to 0.9B. Okay, and this clearly gives us the ratio of the cost prices A and B. So A upon B should be equal to 0.9 divided by 1.2. We can manipulate this to write this as 9 by 12. And if you want, you can further reduce it to 3 and 4. 3 is to 4 also. Now, using this 3 and 4, we can solve the next part of the question. If she increases the selling price such that objects A and B are still sold at an equal price, meaning she is now again changing the selling prices such that the selling prices of A and B are still equal and a profit of 10% is made on object B. Okay, then the profit made on object A will be nearest to. Okay, so we'll treat the cost price of A now as 3, or if you want, you can take it as 3x as well. Okay, that's the cost price of A, and the cost price of B we can take it as 4x. They're saying there's a 10% profit made on product or object B, right? That means the selling price of this object B will be 10% higher than the cost. 10% of 4x will be 0.4x. So selling price of product B is 4.4x, and this is the same selling price for object A also. So for object A also, our selling price becomes 4.4x. Now we need to focus only on these two quantities, the cost price and the selling price for product A in this transaction. So selling price for product A is 4.4x and the cost price is 3x. There is clearly a profit of 1.4x out of the cost 3x, and in percentage we'll multiply this with 100. This would become 140 by 3. So x cancel. 140 by 3 is 3 4s are 12, 3 6 are 18, 46.66 recurring, and that is nearest to obviously 47%, and that is the answer to your question. So this is one way of solving the question where you actually derive the ratio, or you get the cost price ka ratio later when you equate the two selling prices. Right, now let's look at a better way of solving the question. So now to solve this question quickly, guys, we need to observe that for the objects A and B, the selling prices are same such that A has a profit of 20%. So the cost has been multiplied by 1.2, and B has a loss of 10%. So the cost has been multiplied by 0.9. So the selling price of A is a multiple of 1.2 obviously, and the selling price of B is a multiple of 0.9. Okay, so if you can calculate this mentally, you can simplify the question to a great extent by assuming the selling price as a common multiple of 12 and 9. So that is why I generally prefer taking it as the product of 12 and 9, that's 108, and that's how I assume the selling price of both products A and B as 108 rupees. Now, the cost price of A can be found out from this. The cost price has been increased by 20% to get 108. So cost price into 1.2. It is 108. So the cost price of 108 upon 1.2, and that is 90 rupees. So very easily, instantly you get the cost price of A. Similarly, you can assume the cost price of B as 108 as well. And there is a loss of 10% on this particular cost price. So 108 upon 0.9. So the cost price got multiplied by 0.9 and gave you 108. The cost price initially was 108 upon 0.9, that is 120 rupees. And that's all. We need these two cost prices to answer the question now. On B, there is a profit of 10% being made. The new selling price of B would be 132. And similarly, the selling price of A is also 132. Right? The cost of A is 90 rupees. The selling price is 132. You can very clearly observe a profit of 42 rupees made on the product A. So 42 out of the cost price 90 multiplied by 100 is your profit percentage. This will be 46.6%. And that's nearest to 47%, which is the answer to your question. Okay, so again, if you are good in percentages, if you are selecting a very good starting point, like in this case we took 108, All right. So you can simplify the question to a valid extent.